Just okay. Now we are live. So, ladies and gentlemen, good evening.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Good election night to the U.S. Citizens, whoever.
Woo! I am sitting on the edge of my seat, ladies and gentlemen. If I'm a little distracted, even more so than usual, it
we,
might
will,
be because I want to know what's happening.
we will know probably 10 hours from now. What?
I don't think so. I think with all
No,
of the really
it's
close
very tight.
counts,
It's very close. Yeah,
I think
I
it
think a
could
lot. Yeah,
be days to a
yeah.
week. And then if it's contested, maybe even more. So who knows? But
Let's
hopefully
see.
by the January inauguration date, someone will be
Oh yeah.
inaugurated, right? I mean, that's.
Okay, so if you can, yeah, we have already, me guys is there already. If you can also from LinkedIn and from Facebook, somebody like tell us that all is, fine. That would be great.
and
I
and
think we are.
Mika,
I'm just checking LinkedIn and it's
thank you.
approved.
Mika is already saying that we should be
Yeah.
running mates, Jan. So we'll
Okay. All right.
enter
All
we'll
right.
enter the
I
elections.
can. I can. I can be. I can be. There was a one former Czech citizen who was state secretary. That was a Marlon Albright. So there is some history.
We'll find
But he
something for
can't.
you to
I
do.
can't be unless you change
You can't be
constitution. I
president.
can't be American president. Right? You need to be born in the United States. I know a little bit. U.S. Constitution. But
You know it because Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted to become president. He couldn't run.
I don't know. Is it
But
is it the same for the vice president or vice
now
president?
now you're really testing my knowledge. I think
Okay,
as well for the vice
I think it's the
president
same. I
because
think
they
it's
can become president. Yes.
the same. Okay, perfect. Okay, Ivana Zimova is here, so good to have you here.
We love.
Okay, let's start. We have a great team. How great leaders inspire teams through the tough times, right? Which I think it's very timely, right? Because there are, tough times in business, in politics, in sport for sure, So
It's
Lisa, let's go and kick it off.
I just want to say it's tough times all around. For us who are located here in Europe, and you read about how's the German economy doing, how are companies doing, how is the tax situation in the UK. You sit and you wait for the US elections because you don't know how that will impact. So no matter who you are, no matter where you work, no matter what level of a business you're in, there is uncertainty and there's a lot of stress. And the question is really about how do we handle that? So I want everybody who's here tonight, even if you're not an official leader, as in hierarchical, you have people who are reporting into you, there is always room for self leadership and influential leadership, meaning you don't have an official position, but you can
Yeah.
influence how other people are. So we're going to talk tonight about really practical ways. How do you inspire the people around you, especially during these tough times? It's so easy to go negative, to complain, to feel hopeless. Actually, teens these days are having some of the most awful mental health issues of any generation ever. And part of it, yes, it's online and we know, but part of it is climate change. They really feel, oh my gosh, there's nothing I can do. Once you lose hope, you have real problems. So we want to talk here today about being inspired, being hopeful, finding ways forward, even if that external environment is a little bit chaotic or a little bit unpredictable. So if that sounds interesting, you're in the right place.
All right. So few words at the start, right? If you think about tough situations, whether it's sport, business, politics, and the leaders, they let people out of that, tough situations, right? So let's start why people, because if you do in tough situations the same things you were doing so far, chances are it's not gonna to work. So it's about so-called change management. All right. Now, why people change in general? First of all, what we need to say, our brain hates any changes. We like, status quo because, otherwise we need to, spend a lot of energy on those changes. We like, to do like repetitions. Our brain is like machine which is recognizing patterns, it's like predicting based on what we live through. So change is really, energy consumption, a lot of energy consumption. There are two reasons why human brain is okay with the changes. It's pain or pleasure. And the best is to combine both. Okay. Let's go to our predecessors when they were hunting together. And let's say that Mary will be the leader. Let's first talk about what is the difference between leadership and management. Both are very important, okay? And usually there's a one person. Sometimes you are more manager, sometimes you are more leader, okay? So let's say Mary will be manager and Joe will be leader, okay? So Mary was responsible for like, hey, who will do what, okay? But at some moment there were no more animals there in that forest. Then Joe came and said, okay, I can imagine. That's about the vision. Vision is the picture of the world which does not exist yet, but you need to believe in that picture, which means that that leader needs to be visionary, because only vision. First, you need to imagine there can be something, good. It will be tough to get there. So Joe was saying, I can imagine that in those forests over there, there is a lot of, animals, but it will cost us some energy and some pain on the way to get there. But once we are there, there's enough food for another 3 generations. Okay. What Joe did, Joe combined pain on the way, but a lot of joy and pleasure once we are there. That's how human brain, works. When I was coaching Joseph Dostal, who won Olympic Games in speed canoeing, basically what happened to him in Tokyo, once he was in 400 meters, suddenly there was a crisis and he didn't recover till the end of the race, and he ended up fifth. Okay. Now we train his brain. I said there will be again some crisis, but you need to train your brain. There will be some pain and a real pain. But once you are, they call it cave in the sport. Once you are over the cave, over the pain, there will be a lot of pleasure, and that's what happened. There was again pain, but after 150 meters he recovered, and then a lot of endorphin was released, and he won. Right? So I think the visionary leaders, whether it's Churchill or those guys when they're like hunting some animals, they really combine in that vision pleasure at the end, but they are very honest with the people. It will cost some energy to get there. Because what Churchill, if you listen to his BBC speeches, Churchill was always saying, I can promise only pain, blood, and sweat. But if we will get there, we will stay free. And there's a freedom. Yeah, right? That's what I can, promise. So I think it's about visionary leader. The leader needs to be authentic, right? The leader needs to, we call it walk the talk, basically, right?
Yeah.
That's what the leader needs to do. He or she needs to be resilient. Resilience is not only like when you are, down, you are like getting back, but you go through the hell. That's what is resilience all about. You go through the barriers, right? And then you need to be able to be like compassionate, with like show the empathy. Because Colin Powell actually was a very tough commander, but he was empathical. He was empathical commander, and that's why he distinguished himself from the other commanders. I mean, I listened to him once. He was at some our Microsoft leadership event, and it was amazing. It gave me a lot. So those are in my view, couple of characteristics which you need to have to be good leaders through the tough times. To be honest, if there are good times, everybody can do that job, right? Because you are only doing like interviews with the press and stuff like that. But the job, on the top is very lonely, and there is a very windy. And it's a very rarely, a lot of people will have an opinion, but at the end of the day, you are decision maker. You are on the point for a couple of billion US dollars and a lot of people and so on. So it is a tough job. There is now situation. That's the last point. Sparta Prague, as the football team, they won last 2 championships in the football, but now there is a crisis. Okay, and crises are coming and going, whatever. But there is no clear leader, right, in the cabin, and that's the reason why they are not playing. There was a great leader, That leader, they sold him to some other, team. It was clear that he will, move on because he was good. But in my view, Sparta Prague did not prepare bench. Okay, while the main, opponent, Slavia Prague, they have like 4 people who can be captains. Sparta now, in my view, 0 people. There is no one who can replace Krejci, was the name of the guy, right? And you need to think about your, replacement, about your bench. I was always like having at least 1 or 2, possible candidates to replace me. Obviously, we always calibrate those candidates with like external candidates, right? And sometimes, my candidates were winning. Sometimes the external candidate was winning. I mean, whoever was the best choice for the company. But I think you need, as a leader, you need to have a responsibility to build strong bench. And some leaders, if they are not authentic and they are not strong, they are afraid to build strong bench. Because if other people are, good, maybe you will be replaced by the other people. But that's life, right? You need to have a courage to be replaced. This is it.
I have so many things I want to add to this. I love everything that you've said. For me, I just want to say, most importantly, what has been a monumental shift for me in opening up to how do I handle tough times personally is that I completely shifted my mindset around pain. So yes, it will be hard, but I have taught myself to go, but hard is good. Yes, it will be hard, but hard is good. And I give you an example. I still do my cold dips. So I go out into the lake. It's freezing water. It's freezing outside in the air. You go in. It's cold, people. You never get used to it. It's never, a fun, easy thing. But I walk in and I'm like, the pain is good. It means I'm alive. It means I'm pushing myself to my limits. It means I'm activating something in me that's healthy, that for the rest of the day, I will have a glow, I will have a tingle. So I make the pain, I interpret it as bad or something's wrong. I interpret the pain as I'm really pushing what's possible. And I take that into business as well, because that's the same thing. When I'm scared to email somebody or I'm worried about a client, I still will go, okay, but better to have tried, pushed myself, seen where my boundary is, seen where my full potential is. If you're not experiencing pain, you're not experiencing what's possible for you. And I can tell you in the short term, what feels like pain, oh, I'm going to put myself out there, I might get rejected. Actually, in the long term, is much healthier for you, because we know that you will regret on your deathbed, towards the end of your life, you will regret what you didn't try. Most people do not regret what they tried. They regret what they didn't try. Yeah. So I think of myself, I'm just this current pain. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. I have to contact this person, or who am I to whatever, right? We all have these thoughts. And then I say, no, put the pain in now, because you're saving yourself the pain in the long term. And I have applied this throughout my life. I had a mentor when one of my first jobs, when I was 20 something, I hadn't studied business in my undergraduate degree. I had studied politics, philosophy, public leadership, but not business. So I found myself in business and I went, oh, shoot, I know nothing about business. Never studied it before. And I said, maybe I should get an MBA. And my boss at the time said, look, it's going to be hard. You work full time. It was going to be a 3-year program, because I had to do basics and like really basic business, not just a regular quick MBA. But she said 3 years are going to pass either way. And at the end of those 3 years, you either did the work and you have your MBA for the rest of your life, or you're sitting in the same position and going, I wonder if I should have gotten the MBA. But 3 years will pass either way. And that is the momentum that I like to ride. And I say, pain is good. And if it's painful, it means it's important to me. And it means I'm going to work and push my boundaries for my potential. And I make the pain part of that rewarding journey process.
Absolutely. Because what is happening, in your brain chemically, if you are over some easy task, some dopamine is released, but it's easy dopamine. Like if you are clicking on the phone, whatever, or scrolling, it's easy dopamine and it's contagious, okay? But if you need to really push, like I know from my players and when I play professionally, if you play a really hard match and you do like 10 around, there's a lot of dopamine release, and you're winning. There's a lot of dopamine release afterwards. Like 2 weeks ago, one of my, athlete, Hanka Matelova, she won, European Championship in doubles. Okay, they were like in semifinal, they were losing 0-2, and they like returned 4 match balls, and they played in the final against a world number 2 and like European number 1. They still won. And we were in the TV 2 days afterwards, and he said, "Yeah, I can't sleep. I'm so much excited still." And I said, "That's dopamine, because you have a lot of energy from that." So it's definitely true. I mean, pain doesn't mean necessarily, sometimes it's physical pain, but the pain means like you are going out of your comfort zone. Ralph Aldo Emerson was saying that we should live our lives at the edge, right?
Yes.
Basically attacking your comfort zone, because otherwise, I mean, I very often talk about, unlocking human potential. You will not unlock your potential if you are still in the comfort zone. You need to go outside, and if you go outside, it's painful. Chances are that there'll be some failures, and if you are in the sport, you will lose some games or some matches, but it's very rewarding, right? And you are learning. If you are in the comfort zone, you are not learning. It's even from the science. If you using the same synapses, you are not learning. You are learning out of the comfort zone. That's where the new synapses are created, and it's impossible. That's why I really don't like if somebody's saying biohacking. We will hack, the body and the brain and so on. I try to hack my, brain, and I end up in the mental hospital. That's exactly what I did with my depression. I try not to have enough, rest, whatever. So improving is something different from, hacking, because you cannot look, even synapses are growing, zero point 0.1 or 2.3 millimeters every day. So it's a process. It's step by step. That's why, lift will not get you to the success. We are going by stairs to the success, right? Like step by step. That's my.
And what I think is so important to add here, so for those of you who think, I work with many, for example, family businesses. So the parents, the grandparents, the great-grandparents have set up this wonderful, amazing business. These are multimillionaires, thousands of employees. They inherit the company. And of course, what do they think? Oh my God, I don't deserve this. I haven't earned this. This, I really should, this shouldn't belong to me. So don't underestimate how important going through the painful process is, because you've earned it. You stand there, you belong there, you've earned the experience, you've earned what you've learned along the way, you've earned the credibility, and that is what you get from pain. Yes, it's painful to grow, but don't underestimate how painful it is to stay stuck and to stay the same. Most people think comfort zone means I have something from staying in the comfort zone, but you really don't. That's an illusion. You're losing a lot by staying there and staying safe. So I love the idea of being able to earn it. And I take, this entrepreneurial spirit from being an American in general, but I specifically love an American Hollywood producer named Brian Grazer. He's very famous for his curiosity. He wrote a book about having curious conversations. He interviews people once a week, every couple of weeks. And just, he said okay, I'm interested in knowing about surgery. Let me find a heart surgeon and let me just ask him about it. I'm interested in knowing about outer space. Let me get a NASA guy in, right? And this is where he comes up with all his new ideas for movies. And he's had some amazing hits. You all have seen his movies. And what I love about him is he says, when I knock at the front door and someone answers and says, "Oh, I hear your idea. No, thank you," and closes the door, he says, "Great." He doesn't say, "Oh my God, they don't want me and my feelings are hurt and this is miserable." He says, "Great. That'll give me a creative opportunity to figure out what's the next pitch when I go around back and knock on the back door." And then he'll try something new. "Oh, that didn't work. Okay, let me try the window." And he literally says, if I can't get the back door, I can't get the window, I'm going to climb up on the chimney. I'm going to try to get down into the basement. He's so committed to continuing the process of learning, evolving, growing until he makes it work. He is someone who is so proactive in making life work for him. And that is exactly the skill set that leaders who are really inspirational in times of crisis, they don't get stuck in the, oh, I can't, oh, the door is closed, oh, this is hard, oh, I have to do extra work because I have to walk around the back. They go, great. They love the journey. They love the challenge. They love the process of, now what can we do? Ooh, that's a fun roadblock. How do we get around that? And they make it a fun, exciting process. Remember, if your heart's beating fast, you can either say, I'm nervous or I'm excited. You can reinterpret whatever you're feeling in your body. So I want you to start practicing going from, oh, I can't, it's bad, it's hard, it's energy, it's, and really pump yourself up. Yes, I can. What's the opportunity here? How do I get to that next stage? What can I learn? And really get that energy moving you in a direction instead of sitting in a direction nervously going, I don't know. And when you do that and you inspire others simply by being that proactive role model who says, hey guys, it's tough and we can do tough things, right? You don't make it a sinking feeling. You bring everyone else up to the opportunity with you. This is what great leaders do.
Yeah. And, great leaders who are able really to handle tough situations, as you said, they are curious. And curiosity, by definition, leads to the creativity. How creatively you can overcome those challenges. Creativity is about emotional granularity, which means like I don't have like two emotions, I'm pissed off or I'm in a good shape, I'm great, right? So there are different, emotions, and emotions. Lisa Feldman is a great, lady. She's a professor, and she talks about, how emotions are created. And it really depends, to me, on which kind of the vocabulary and the words, the leader is using. Because you can use like, hey, this is really very dangerous situations, and all people will be scared. Or you can say, hey, we should have a lot of respect. This is a tough situation for sure. It's challenging, but if we will work together, it will be painful, but we will get there. Because emotions are created. It's called from emovere, which means energy and move. And emotions are created by our, thoughts. Basically, emotion is where your thoughts is touching your body. Okay, and that means that the words are creating, reality. And every CEO these days, it's not only chief executive officer, but it's also chief enthusiasm officer. Okay, and it's also chief emotion officer, because emotions are contagious. And if you are pissed off 24/7, guess what? Your team will be scared and will be pissed off. If you are like, situation is tough, but I'm still optimistic because we still can find a way, because, I'm, creative and curious, and I have some curious people around me. Then again, there are some positive emotions, and they are contagious, and the team is good. You can really create, you can go green way even in the crisis, which means like, okay, there's a tough situation, we recognize that, but I'm still using what is best in the people. I create a lot of synergy and I inspire people, and that's where, endorphin, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, in terms of the teams, are created, and the team goes and people feel good even during the crisis. Or I can create toxic environment where we'll be like, oh, it's not us, it's them. A lot of finger points. In Microsoft, it was forbidden. It was unwritten rule. When we were like presenting to the leadership team, afterwards they were presenting to me, it was forbidden to do like finger points. This guy or that guy or whatever. We said, okay, when there was some underperformance, it was addressed, but no like finger points, because it leads like everybody is, oh, it's you, and then there is no, no solution, right? So there is a great book. I don't know what is the name of the book. Focus on Relentless Solution. I think it's about a sport, but it's the same in the business. That once, if you are too much, your brain is too much concentrated on the problem, you getting really negative. If your brain is much more connected to the solution, you are good. And the author, I don't know what is the author. I think his name is Selk. If your brain goes like asking the one question, what now? What one thing I can do to get closer to the solution? And it's usually some small thing. But a small thing, it's about small dopamine and bigger dopamine afterwards. And you go and you're moving and you are changing the things.
Exactly. Cut the spiral of negativity and just say, what's one thing I can do?
Yeah, that's from the Lisa Feldman, 7.5 Lessons About the Brain. Yeah.
Yes. So Ivana on the LinkedIn chat has put in some recommendations for the Lisa Feldman Barrett.
She's great. She's great. Absolutely.
She's really great.
Yeah.
And I think that's the question you want to have handy. You want to have a series of small questions you can ask yourself, memorize them, write them down on a sheet of paper, because when your brain goes into panic mode, fear mode, uncertain mode, you literally lose some abilities to get to the smartest part of your brain. So have the questions handy. What's the opportunity? What's one small action that I can take right now, right? What can I do from here? These are the kinds of things. Write them down, stick them on a Post-it note. When you are ready, I'm stuck. This is hard. Hey, hard is a good thing, right? This is hard and I can do hard things. This is hard and hard is where I know my potential. Have these sayings handy to immediately pull yourself out. And I do a lot, we've already been talking about this, but I do a lot of reframing on situations. I've maybe shared this before. I have a podcast list exclusively for when I'm stuck in traffic. It's all the podcasts that I really want to listen to. I put them into a playlist and I forbid myself. I cannot listen to it until I'm stuck in traffic. And the moment I hit traffic, I'm like, yeah, all right, great. I've been waiting. I wanted to hear that Huberman podcast. And so I have completely shifted. The situation is the same. I'm sitting in traffic, but I've shifted what's within my control, what I can do to make it an enjoyable situation. And that's what I want people to remember. It's such a simple example of don't spend time, energy, effort trying to change what's around you that you can't change. Instead, change the way you approach the situation, change your mindset around the situation, change how you interpret the situation. And from there, you access the smartest parts of your brain, and then you can find opportunities, you can find pleasure, you find your creativity. Creativity often comes not from having a blank canvas and millions of dollars, but it comes from actually having constraints. We know when the reality constrains you, that's when you can be most creative.
Look, if you are on stress, it's about survival. So by definition, if you are under the strong stress, there's no way you can solve some big issues, how to, overcome some obstacles, whatever. It's about your neocortex, as you rightly said, about your, more intelligent part of you, right? Even though, Daniel Kahneman, who is the Nobel Prize laureate for the behavioral economics, he figured out that 70% of decisions, 70% of the decisions we are, doing are based on our emotions. It's not based on rationality.
I'm surprised it's not more. Yeah.
It's huge.
So often we have an emotion and then we tie the rationality to the emotion that we felt because we like to explain why we've felt the way that we've felt. And we want it to feel congruent inside. I felt something, so now my actions, my decisions, my behaviors need to somehow be aligned. And so we want to be...
Yeah. It seems to me, if we talk about politics, like 3 years ago, it was still the battle of thoughts, the battle of ideas. Today, it's the battle with the emotions, right? Because there are not that many, even now in the current, political cycle in your country, that they didn't talk that much about the real issues. It was probably like 20-30%, all like, hey, he is bad, she is bad, whatever, right? And it's not necessary. It is still democracy. But I think we are not, moving properly. We are probably not unlocking our potential. Let's put it this way,
Yes. I think that's exactly right. Actually, if you ask people who they're voting for, they'll tell you one or the other. And then if you ask them what, based on what specific policies or
I don't
mindsets that they
know.
have around, they can't tell you. Nobody can tell you. And it's not their fault. I'm not saying, oh, people are so uneducated. It's because the candidates are barely talking about it.
Yeah, that's true.
In the news, it's not really covered unless, for example, when I read my US news, I have to read the Financial Times from the UK in
Right.
order to get the business
They are
elements of
still
the US.
relatively, yeah, they are still relatively based on the facts, you know. Financial Times is relatively good still, you know.
Yeah, and so you have to then see, okay, what is the tax policy, right? Who stands for what when it comes to business? What are businesses worried about because of the policy? But this doesn't come out. So we are seeing a decline in leadership in terms of what gets media attention. And when we see what's happening in politics, for example, or influencers and what gets media attention, then we a little bit lose track of, in reality, in day-to-day life, for
Yeah.
what we're doing in our businesses and our sports. We've lost what it means to have role models who role model good leadership tactics. That's why it's so
Yeah.
important for us to be describing what we are.
And then if we talk about kind of what is reality and what are emotions, but it's not reality. Like let's look into the history on the because stories are playing very important role. Overall mythology,
Mythology, yeah.
mythology. Okay. Stories, well, the way how we were like handing over some knowledge and information to the next generation. Okay, so we have writing here for like 4,000 years. It was in old Mesopotamia. We have print for like 500 years, but it was always people who were editors of information, who were like controlling the power. First it was kings, then it was a church, obviously, then it was a media. Interestingly enough, for example, Mussolini was first, journalist, then editor, and then dictator. Right? I'm not saying it is like normal, whatever. But now, what is important now? For the first time in human history, the editors, Harari, in fact, Yuval Harari is talking about that. Editors are not human beings; those are algorithms. Okay, so algorithm will decide what kind of information you will get, unless you will make your own choice. That's why I think we need to do media education, especially for like young generation, right, and stuff like that. I mean, look, I watch Joe Rogan podcast, and there was an interview with Donald Trump for 3 hours, which was okay. I watch it for some time, and then suddenly I was getting a lot of information from like Trump election, campaign, whatever. And I did the same with the other candidates, the same, way. It
Oh,
turned
yeah.
me around immediately, right? So now, I think it's about the companies. They need to be very responsible, like Facebook, Microsoft, all of those companies, owning some social networks, because they are editors. Those algorithms are editors of that information. Not talking about like artificial intelligence. For example, how artificial intelligence can help you to overcome tough situations, because it's really good. I think both me and you, we are using it quite heavily, right?
Yeah.
And I must say it is quite good.
There are so many things we could warn. Maybe that's a whole topic for coming up in the future. Because if for anyone who's listening, if you read Yuval Noah Harari's books, I mean,
Oh,
I literally I can't sleep at night. But it's so important to read them because,
he's a
especially as
great guy, and he's very balanced. For example, around the AI, he talks about a lot of dangerous things, right? Other
yes,
people don't see. He's a very balanced guy.
and he is a philosopher and he is a historian and he's able to look at data in a very holistic way.
Exactly.
His book, his what's the name of his current book? I read it. I can't remember what it's called at the moment. I'm
Yeah.
blanking. But the one before, 21 Lessons for the 21st
Yeah.
Century. For most people, they know him from Sapiens.
Sapiens, yeah,
So
that's the book
that's
I.
his sort of the one that made him the most famous, and then Homo Deus. And everything he does, he gives it such a philosophical and historical lens that he is really a thinker. And this is what we're missing from leaders today that are thoughtful, that are
That's
principled.
exactly. I was like, okay, this guy, I can imagine he would be the prime minister of president, even in the big country,
Would be
right?
amazing.
Because this guy, he knows exactly the history. He can learn from the history. He can make, some predictions, and he can learn, and he can also realize maybe I was wrong, which I think it's a very important to admit your own, mistakes, right? That's it. Because he's, for example, saying that, the real science is not about many new things. The real science is about correcting things step by step, right? Maybe correcting some, theories and so on. That's the real science. Why, like the politics is pushing, hey, this is the true. Real science is like, hey, let's, prove them it's wrong. It's not true anymore, right?
Exactly. And the book, by the way, I just Googled it, is called Nexus. I couldn't remember the name
Nexus,
of it.
absolutely.
Nexus is his book.
He was
I
just doing
highly recommend.
because I watched him in the past, but now he was introducing this book, so that's how I came to the new podcast. Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, yes. I would highly recommend it. But I really want to focus in that, for what he does is he slows down, he thinks, and he looks, and he has sort of a moral compass of how he thinks we should define things for the future. And this is important. Not all of us are going to be philosopher, historians, no problem. But every person, not just a leader, every person should know what's their true north compass. Because when times are tough and the waves are happening all around you, what you can do is stay authentic and aligned to yourself. And how many of us really sit down and think, what are my values?
Yeah.
I don't know that most people really have ever said it. And when I ask people who have not spent a lot of time, of course they say, family and health. And then I say, great. What are you doing to prioritize your health? Oh, well, actually, I eat crappy food and I work 12 hours a day and I watch TikTok until 2 a.m. And yet you say you value health, right? So first is identifying your values, but second of all is saying, how do I live my values?
Absolutely.
This is one way to stay completely grounded no matter what chaos is going around, because you know who you are. You know how you want to show up in situations. You know what message you want to share with the world.
Absolutely.
This is what leaders should do. I have my life purpose. It sits at my desk. I'm here for people.
Yeah, you talk about it, last time. Maybe there are some new people. It would be good if you can, do
yes.
like summary. What did you say last time?
For those of you who aren't watching, I'm holding up a statue that I keep at my desk, and it's a wooden carving of two people sort of hugging, and their heads are down. You don't know, is it male, female? Is it love? Are they happy? Are they sad? Is it, we don't know what it is. But my life purpose is all about really being there, non-judgmental, completely supportive of people. And the reason that I do this is because when we feel safe, supported, we have a safe space to truly discover, that's when we take risks. And from here, you can live your full potential. And that's why I decided to do coaching for a living, is because I said, hey, how do I maximize as many people as possible living their potential? But this is how I decide what charities I get involved with. This is how I've decided how I raise my kids to be. This is how I've decided which jobs I take and which clients I do not take, which, by the way, there are clients that I will turn down who I feel, they're not in the best interest of creating something good in the world. So this helps me. Times are tough. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. And yet I know who I want to be. And so I can easily make decisions and move through the world. I'll give one more personal example, because, people think, okay, yes, I'm American. I have my number one value is freedom. Yeah. My number two close by is family. People will often say to me, oh, if you're so into freedom, why'd you get married and have kids? Because I don't think the two are exclusive. No, I think I can have freedom. My husband and I have freedom within the relationship in terms of I can ask for what I want. When the kids were younger and we couldn't go on holidays together, I could go a week on holidays. He could go a week on holidays.
You started, I can ask for what I want. I think every woman, is the same.
Well, let me then say he can ask for it too. Yeah.
I know what you are talking about, you know. Right?
I think it's very important that
No,
people do have this
yeah,
freedom. Actually, a lot of women sacrifice a lot of stuff. They think, oh, I have to be there for the house, to be the housewife, or I have to be there for the kids. I have to give up a lot.
mhm.
And so the freedom is not that I have no attachments. The freedom is that I have attachments and I can still move. I could seek the career I wanted to, for example. And now the latest thing that's coming up, which I haven't even told you yet, Jan, is
Okay.
that my family and I will be in Asia for 3 months, come
Wow.
February, March, April, because I said I really want some freedom and flexibility to go explore the world. And while the kids are still young and we can take them out of school,
So will the kids go to the school there, or would a homeschooling, or what?
homeschooling.
Homeschooling. Okay.
Homeschooling, courtesy of
All
me.
right. Okay. Do you have are you patient enough? You know.
Yes, I do a lot of their education on the side.
My advice, because Christina, my daughter, she was always in international schools, but she always would need to pass the exam from the local from the Czech language, right? My wife was teaching her like 5 minutes. That was it in the whole, childhood. Then, grandma took over and that was it, right? My wife said, no, I can't do it. I can't be a teacher.
So now I'm getting really personal here, but I will share with you all. I'm so
Okay.
into educating my kids in a certain way
That's
that
good.
I send them to school. I say, whatever you learn at school is sort of a bonus,
Yeah.
but I'll be responsible for what I consider to be true
Mhm.
education.
Okay.
And so exposure to other countries, for example, exposure to other ways of living. I will tell you guys, for this Yuval Noah Harari book about Sapiens, it's a very dense, historic, but they made like a teenage version of this book.
Mhm.
And I have that out for my kids, and I teach them about evolution, and and we read this kind of stuff. And yes, we're kind of dorky at home, but I do teach them how to take risks, how to be curious, how to think, how to be philosophers, how to debate. So I find that to be education. Not that I sit down and do a math problem with them, but we really debate, discuss. I'll take out money if they want to understand how money works. We check how, I had them guess one time. I said, do you want, 1 penny doubled every day for 30 days? Or do you want 10 francs, $10? I said, which one do you think is more? And then I had them do the math. Day 1, 1 penny. Day 2, 2 pennies. Day 3, 4 pennies. And
It's called compound interest.
But isn't this a fundamental math skill?
Oh, yeah, it's good.
They don't learn it at school, right?
Yeah.
So these are the things that I think when we educate ourselves, not what did someone give me and then I take it, but really what are the fundamental concepts, the way of thinking that I would need to have. And I do this for my kids, but I do this for adults. I can't tell you how many times I coach or come to executive leadership teams and I say, hey guys, you don't have a thinking concept. You speak, you have instincts.
I agree.
But you don't have a thinking, you don't have like the process. You haven't thought about the way of thinking, right? And this is really helpful when you can structure things during times of uncertainty, during tough times, anything anyone can do to help with structure, to help with clarity, to help with understanding how to think through the process. You're going to be able to pull people out of the, I don't know what to do, I'm panicking, this is hard. And they say, no, actually, I know what to do because I know the right way to think.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I just was going to say, I think that's really important.
You mentioned one good thing, and that's kind of because we talk about, tough situations and leadership in those tough situations, right? And I think you need to build, as a leader, you need to build, your own content, like whatever. And now it's very easy to do it, with the help of here Ivana is talking about Life Buddy at AI. I will try that. There are, many applications, obviously there, but you need to create, some content and some, structure, the way, as you said, the way you think, because I want, like, to my executives or to my athletes, to give them like the content, what I learn in, my view, but also to teach them how to think, not necessarily how I think, but based on their talents, how they can think. Yesterday, I was having like, 12 different managers. They were like top managers, 3, 4 top managers, and the rest was like B-1. And we talk about it. And I said, they were like, how we can, make it like you made it, up to the, leadership team in Microsoft. I said, everybody is unique. What I can teach you how to use your specific talents, your genes, to be good leader. That's and how you can use it to think. Because look, I'm great with vision, strategy, communication. I'm not super great with details, right? I don't like, like doing all details, it's not me. If I'm getting, set up the numbers, I see immediately opportunity and I see the strategy behind it. What we can do to use that opportunity. But I'm not necessarily the right guy to analyze a lot of things in details. No, that's not me. Right? I can do it and I will be probably successful, but it's getting a lot of energy from me. If I do like visions and strategy, for me and for the companies, it's giving me energy. So it's important. That's why I'm saying it's important to understand who you are. There is no, one concept. This is it for a good leader in the tough situation. No, it depends, like, who you are, who is, your team. There's even in management, it's called situational management. That you can be different manager if the things are, good. You can listen much more because you have more time. If there is a crisis, you can still, listen couple, but you have like full hands, right? So you need to make, some decisions and so on. So it's called situational management. So it really depends. That's why I think flexibility matters. I give you one example. During my career, I went through 3 big. One of the crises was like my personal crisis. It was my, mental, when I was mentally ill. But like, economical crisis, 2000 and 2008. Okay. Why in 2000, I think I was not totally, ready for that. And I was a country manager and so on, right? I was not, ready. 2008, I was able to announce crisis before the crisis hit IT sector. And that's why we were still quite, successful, money-wise, people-wise, and so on, right? Because you are, prepared for it. I remember, for example, countries were, giving a lot of money to like pumping the state, money to the, even in the United States, like to recover the economy. There was a, a lot of crisis in banking and so on. So we've got a couple of people around the world and they were like sniffing all government webs, for those new money, where those money will go and so on. And so we were really ready to react. Everybody could do it, but we will, faster than our competitors. And it was the same in Brussels. Not all opportunities we use, but it was like that. So you need to basically, let's get ready during the good times that there will be the bad times, right? Like big companies usually like laying off people during the bad times because that's the way how you can push the stock price up, whatever. I don't necessarily agree with it, but this is it. But if you are in Germany, for example, there's a lot of this like 60-70%, they call it Mittelstand. Those are small and medium-sized companies, several generations. Those people, they know exactly, they are economical cycles. And during the good times, we will, build some reserves so we can keep, good people even during the bad times, right? I have the Czech people would know who I'm talking about. There is a one chief, great, guy, great guy, Zdeněk Polreich. He's well known also in the TV and so on. And he told me, Jan, it cost me a lot of money and a lot of energy, but I kept during the COVID, I still kept all my good, people in my restaurants, right? They were somehow busy. There was some, money from the state, whatever. But he's still there. And after the crisis, he could start immediately. The other restaurants, they were slow. If you take airlines, they did not recover yet, after the COVID. The service, the prices are the same. Service is down significantly. So whoever will come to the, I know airline business is very tough. Whoever come with some disruptive model will win now because all airlines are not good. Everything is delayed and
I can only agree with. I have a lot of delays on my flights. I
Oh, don't
even
tell
worse
me.
is trying to take trains in Germany. But what I will say is also really important to what you added here is to be decisive, take action. Obviously, being proactive, having a plan in place makes that much easier for you to do. Again, zoom out of the day-to-day crisis, think bigger, think wider, think longer term. What could happen? I hope I'm getting this story right, but I remember I listened to the CEO of Victorinox. You know, they make the knives, the Swiss
Yeah,
Army
yeah, yeah,
knives,
yeah.
right?
That's a very good story. That's a very good story. It's a
Okay,
Swiss
hopefully I get it right. So you help me if I get. And in 2000, when we had the Twin Towers,
2011,
yeah,
2011.
gosh, I can't
2001.
even.
Yeah, September.
2001.
Sorry,
Yeah, I was just gonna
September
say September
11,
11th.
2001. I'm like,
I
yeah.
can't even do the math anymore. So all of a sudden, you could never fly with a Swiss Army knife. Well, people used to have sales events and giveaways, and they used to give
Yeah,
everyone Swiss Army knives. So all of a sudden, they had huge stock, zero demand, plummeted, and they didn't have any foreseeable future where they thought, oh, well, this is just a short-term blip. And they said, no, we think it will never be that you can take your knife again on an airplane. And so they said, whoa, what do we do? Well, they are a Swiss owned company, family owned. And they said, we're going to keep all of our people. We have reserves in place. We have the cash. We'll keep the inventory. It will still somehow sell over time. But they didn't panic. They didn't say, oh, lay off. Oh, we have to. What they said is, let's use this as an opportunity to diversify. And they tested out a bunch of different stuff. They did some acquisitions. If you can even imagine, they now do perfumes, they do luggage, highly successful. I think perfumes makes up like a huge majority of their,
they leveraged the brand because it was a good brand. So they leveraged,
exactly.
the brand. Absolutely.
So actually, had there been no crisis in 2001, they would be fine today, right? Fine. But because there was a crisis and because they could diversify and because they kept their good talent and everybody knew this is the place to work because they really care about their people, they still attract good talent. They've grown what they're creating, right? And they've grown the brand and the consumer recognition in multiple categories. This is what it means to be an inspiring leader, not a short-term leader who doesn't have a plan and who's just cutting stuff to
Yeah.
cut, but I have a vision. I'm creating what's possible. I'm going to get people through. Let's be decisive. Let's try take risks
Yeah. The,
to
the
pay
the
off.
problem is if you're doing the cuts, okay, maybe you are cutting and you are laying off some underperformers, but that's your problem. But usually, if you start to lay off the people, good people will leave your company, right? They are during the bad times. This is it. It's not that bad people will still stay because they don't have that many other chances, or bad,
Options.
or mediocre people. But the real superstars, there's a great opportunity for them to move on. So you need to take care of those people, right? Because otherwise they'll be gone. We I must say that Microsoft in 2008 we laid off like 2,000 people, and after 3 months we hired another 6,000 people. Right, so maybe there were some cases, there were some underperformers, but I don't think it was necessarily good move from us. But you never know. The truth is that you don't want to overreact. On the other hand, if you see like in industry everybody is doing it, you follow, right? But then it's about courage, and I think it's easier to do it if you are privately owned as opposed to the public company. Because once, like if you are a CEO and your stock goes down, guess what? Your board is over there, right?
Agreed.
So that's exactly what will happen. That's why you need to do it. Even though it's like companies are like laying off people, which is not necessarily nice, and the stock is going up, which means like cost is down.
It works.
But
Yeah.
it works, right? But as I said, it's not necessarily nice. But this is it, because otherwise you are hearing like, hey, in your company, like 60% of the US pensioners, they have some stake in your company. Those are those pension funds, so they are dependent, their pensions are dependent on that. That's why you need to do something. So you are under the pressure. It's not easy.
It's not easy. It's a lot of pressure, and it works. And that's why people will do these short-term decisions, because in the short term it works,
Oh yeah,
right?
I agree.
It's incentivized to be in the short term.
Absolutely.
One thing I want to make sure that we cover before our time is up, and Ivana did a great job of sort of hinting at it. She said, when we're talking about AI and coaching, she recommended an app called lifebuddy.ai.
Yeah,
But what I would say is it doesn't actually matter which AI you use
absolutely.
something. So for
Absolutely.
whenever you are feeling stuck, I want you to start getting used to the idea that you can just put in a prompt, so free version of ChatGPT, and say, act like a professional coach, act
Yeah,
like Jan,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and tell it, here's the situation where I'm stuck. What would be the next steps you would recommend? How should I think about this process? How can I have a more positive attitude? Don't feel alone in this. Let AI, let yourself get the support that you need. Because sometimes it's simply enough. You're spiraling. It's hard. I can't do it. I don't see any options. Nobody around me sees any options. We're all sitting around complaining. And ChatGPT or whomever AI is totally neutral. They don't care. They're not emotional and complaining like you do. So you put it in and they assess the facts. And then the AI can give you at least something to break the negativity
yeah.
cycle.
It is a point. How can, and this is really like, you know, top thing what you can do with the AI. I obviously you probably guys know that I use, on my seminars and everywhere with athletes and with the executives, Gallup Strengths Finder test, right? So my first strength is maximizer. What some scientists, some psychologists did. You can have like 34 different. There are 34 different options what you can get. Like top five, you will get top five, and they put for each and every option one very famous person, which from the history or from some temporary person, contemporary person, right? So you can look at those people who are having your talents. Okay, so for example, what I do, because I have first maximizer, which was maximizer is like you are tough with you and tough with the others, but you also see what is best in the other people. Okay, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is the guy who, psychologists decided to represent. So I'm asking, like, if Arnold would be in that situation, what Arnold would do. A lot of people, if you watch, and I read a lot of books, about Arnold, right? My daughter, she thought, hey, she's kind of the, easy guy, whatever. And then she really learned that, maybe she started from, kind of the low level family. Look, she was very successful in sport. She was very successful in art, whatever you think about the movies. And he was very successful in politics. California, it's eighth biggest economy in the world. When he
Yeah.
was a governor, right? So it is a good. And I must say that I changed. I thought, okay, he was like that guy, right? Uh, you know, uh, mm, Terminator. But he's like street smart, I would call
Yes.
it. Okay,
Yes.
and I learn a lot, but the way he's able to simplify everything, and so I'm asking what Arnold would do in that situation. Or my second is strategic, which was Walt Disney. What Walt Disney would do, so you can really use it in a very creative way, and you will be absolutely amazed, right? What you will learn. I use it for learning, for like if I speak somewhere, it can create like summary of my speech. I can publish it, right? Amazing, and I think Lisa is using it also quite heavily,
Oh
right?
yeah, for exactly all the things that you described. When I have to write up our notes for what we're going to talk about here today, I don't always do what ChatGPT has said, but I always ask ChatGPT
Yeah,
because maybe I've forgotten something, or maybe I haven't thought about something, or maybe they've organized it in a different way. So I don't use it as a full, I rely only on it. But like I said,
no,
as a
sure.
sparring partner,
It is,
as
yeah,
someone.
it is like advisor. And you know what? It's like what I realized, that more content you have about, you, and you are like author of that content, whatever, on the internet. Chat GTP, I'm not using it. I didn't try yet. I will, but I'm using heavily Chat GTP. Chat GTP can really figure out, if I would ask like, what Jan would say about leadership in that specific country, 95% is exactly what I would, say. It's really, it is,
Actually, a
amazing.
little creepy if you think about it, but yeah.
It is. Look, and I tell you what, right? A lot of people are afraid of that because a lot of coaches are like, oh, it will kill coaching, whatever. I don't think so. I mean, if you create enough, content and you are like original, it can help you significantly, and you can learn so many things. Because it would take me if I would really do Googling heavily, what I can get in like 20 seconds would take like 4 hours at least, to get from Google,
Yep.
Right? Which will also, I think, change a little bit, search business, because Google for sure will use artificial intelligence, which I think it's also good, but
Yeah, they've
yeah.
also started with their search being an artificial intelligence. I think, to wrap up here today, as people start to think, okay, how do great leaders inspire teams through the tough times? It's really finding that winner's mindset, being able to say, no matter what, it's hard. I can do hard things. I can take this on. It's not a problem. It's a challenge. There's an opportunity
Yeah,
here for me to take on, feeling empowered, feeling hopeful. And
absolutely.
I will share the quote that I love, which is the best way to predict the future is to create it. So be empowered enough to say,
Yeah.
okay, this is what's happening around me. And what do I want it to look like in the future? How
And
do I want to react?
yeah, and I would add, one more. If you want your people to behave in certain way, you need to behave like that. You need to, first of all, you need to lead by your own example, because people will, follow you. I mean, emotions are contagious. If you are having a lot of energy, your team at some point, it doesn't matter how many, extroverts and introverts you have. I can get excited, many introverts, right? For me, it really doesn't matter, right? It works like that. But I think leading example, it's also about, parenting, because a lot of parents, how should I be the best parent? I don't think I'm the best father, not at all. But I'm really good in like showing my daughter what she can do in her own, way. Because I was always working very hard, learning hard, whatever, and I think she's seen me, and that's what she is, doing. She's a lawyer. It's absolutely, different. When she was 12, I asked her last time, I said, Christina, would you like to do business like your dad? She looked at me, she said, no, business, every stupid guy can do business. I'm going to be lawyer. So she's a lawyer, so whatever. But, but
like her.
I was a good example, at least on something, right? Anyway, so guys, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we're looking forward to seeing you all soon.
Absolutely.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you.